I have a sense that you might be a bit AI'd out right now. And so we have a treat for you because we're going to get a perspective that folks normally never get, especially when it comes to AI and education conversations, which is, what do state superintendents think about AI in education? How do they prioritize this work in comparison to all the other things that they're dealing with? Again, my name is Yongpradit. I'm the Chief Academic Officer of Co.org and the lead of Teach AI. Teach AI is an initiative led by Co.org, ETS, ISTE, Khan Academy, and the World Economic Forum. These states are part of Teach AI as well as 36 other state education agencies. We'll be launching a resource starting tomorrow about policy ideas. Some of the resources talk about AI's implications. The other ones suggest policy considerations. Again, this is not ready yet. There are a number of organizations behind that resource. And at the core of that resource are policy ideas. We'll be discussing some of these today. You'll see this slide again, don't worry about it. But what you should know is that this is the one that states are acting on currently, the idea of providing guidance. And you'll hear a little bit about that guidance today. Some of these states are working on that guidance. Some of these states have put out that guidance and are still working on the guidance and implementation. So let's hear from these superintendents. And let's start off with a question about just being a superintendent. So I don't know if y'all know, but superintendents are pretty busy. And they're facing a myriad of issues. I just want to know, how do you all sort through what gets your focus? What is it even like to be a state superintendent of education? So to do that, tell us something about your job that folks here would never know. Let's start with Superintendent Baesler.
Thanks, Pat. Appreciate it. So Kirsten Baesler, State Superintendent, great state of North Dakota. Really happy to be here with you. Actually came to the State Superintendent role as a technology integration specialist. And so this is really important and near and dear to my heart. So when I was thinking about this question, Pat, it's like, what do all of you, think the superintendent's role is like? And I will tell you, it's probably like nothing you've ever thought. I think the biggest thing is, what is it like to be a superintendent? And what's something that you probably don't know about being superintendent is it is a lot of partnership. It is an enormous amount of time and effort of cultivating relationships to provide opportunities for our schools. I think a lot of people think that once you become the superintendent for the state of any state, whether it's Nevada or North Carolina or California, that you get to be the king boss or the queen boss. And it is so not like that. I think most of our constitutions, it's ironic that the three of us are all elected state superintendents and you are appointed by your governor who is elected. That once you become elected and that you get to be the queen bee, and you're not. And so it's actually implementing what our legislators or our governor signs into executive order, and the implementation is the hardest part. Signing a policy or creating good policy is actually the easy part. I don't mean to, no offense to those policymakers or those lawmakers out there, but then they hand it off to us as state superintendents, as secretaries of education, and say, okay, go forth and do good things. And that is where I think the absolute skill and necessity of always keeping your eye on where the puck will be to inform those legislators of the policy that they need to engage in, and forming the partnerships, much like we did with Code.org, Pat, where I skated to where the puck was going to be 6 years ago, and had it not been for our partnership, I would have never been ready. And that's actually what my policymakers and my lawmakers wanted to hear when we introduced that policy for computer science and cybersecurity. It's like, okay, this is a great idea, but how will you actually implement that? So I think one thing that most people don't understand about the superintendency as a state level is the real need to be a cultivator of relationships and partnerships.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Superintendent Baesler. Any other superintendents, just again, what do these folks not know about your job?
Well, I'll jump in and say that what keeps my team and me grounded is students. And I think the question for all of us becomes, with everything that Kirsten just described and how complicated governance structure can be at the state level, how do you do that? How do you keep students at the center of all you do? And so in North Carolina, we created a strategic plan called Operation Polaris, and its North Star is students. And we deliberately referred to it as the North Star because the North Star is not just aspirational, it's navigational, it's what recenters you. Because you're going to get away, you're going to get pulled by the politics, and you're going to get pulled by things that take you away from that central mission, but you always have to come back to what's right.
It's interesting you say that because North Carolina was the 4th state to create state-level AI guidance. And they intentionally started with their existing digital learning plan and their profile of a graduate and aligned AI to that. So the goal wasn't to incorporate AI in education. The goal was to serve your goals using AI. So I appreciate that. Superintendent Ebert, Superintendent Thurmond, tell us something that you don't like about your job. Okay, there might be aspiring state superintendents out there. They need to know this, okay? What don't you like about your job?
That's really hard to say. Thank you for putting us on the spot.
I've warned them.
To be honest and God bless all 3 of my colleagues here because they run for they are elected officials. In my instance, interview with the State Board of Education and then appointed by the governor. But politics and children, they should be separate, right? When we're educating our children, we've seen thank you, I heard a clap out there somewhere.
Only
yes.
one person, yeah.
All right.
There's been this conflation of the two over time and most recently. And so I think when I hear about, people getting spun up about what's going on in our classrooms and it's not driven on facts. I mean, starting with the facts of what is going on in our classrooms, our teachers are doing phenomenal work each and every day. They come as leaders into school buildings and we demonstrated, right, through the pandemic and everything else that has transpired that we are on a path to success for all of our children. So separating politics and education is huge to keep that in mind each and every day. And come with the facts. When you have change and ideas and all of those pieces to move forward, make sure that you're grounded in facts and ask questions.
You got to have thick skin to be a state superintendent.
So we get bonus points if we ask questions. I think I read that in the notes.
Oh,
right,
are you going to ask a question of Superintendent Thurmond?
Already.
All right.
So
Let's get ready to rumble.
So Tony, I like what Jhone said when she said our children don't belong and don't deserve to be in the crosshair of politics.
Yes.
But you are in a state that is heavily steeped in the politics of K-12 education. And so, and I know that you actually have some, I hope, desire, and you've already established you're running for the governor of California because you want to run with education as your background.
That's right.
And as much as that sounds wonderful, I guess I'd like to hear how you actually make those two congruent, because I think they're important. I think we've had several education governors in this nation, and I think we could use one more in California.
Amen.
All right.
First of all, I love serving as state superintendent. I left a safe seat in the legislature when I realized that my politics are about education, and there was one job that was all about education. Now, it's almost impossible to separate the politics out of it. I wish that we could. I think you all have seen what we are experiencing in recent times, that the politics of education are about as intense as anything that you might experience. And who knew that establishing a new curricula would have so much debate? Who knew that there'd be people banning books in our country? It is about as intense as it can get. But for me, the chance to serve almost 6 million students, to get a first-rate education, is the honor of a lifetime. Education saved my life, growing up in very humble beginnings. And so for me, there's never been another job that I've wanted to do. And I would like to be an education governor who can continue that work. But for any of you who are considering running for superintendent or school board or any other office, you will see that we have entered an era where people are looking more for someone to blame than to find solutions. When I walk down the grocery store, people come up to me, they want to talk to me about something that is not right in one of our 1,000 school districts. I don't spend any time trying to explain to them what local control is. I take down their number and then I call the local superintendent and say, get this fixed. No, people may not always have the opportunity to talk to any elected official, and education is so important to so many people that even when I'm being blamed for something like traffic problems or climate change that I have nothing to do with, I take it as a badge of honor that I'm not sitting on the sidelines and people are coming to me asking for help. The same is true in the conversation about AI. And our state has been one of the leading states to put out guidance, but that guidance has to be more than what are you going to do about students who want to use ChatGPT to write their papers for them. Yes, that is important, but there have to be conversations about how AI becomes a tool to advance educational goals, to close the achievement gap, to make sure that every single student gets a great opportunity. This is not a new conversation. We have superintendents who are in this state, who are in this room, like Dr. Barbara Nemko from Napa County, who's been talking about how do you use technology for years to help English learners, to help students who don't have access to the internet. The pandemic exposed a lot of vulnerabilities for our states. That our kids could be without technology and access to high-speed internet is mind-boggling. We have to change that. We have to make sure that AI is centered in equity in how we help students achieve from all backgrounds. And in the case of our state, we have to finally establish a computer science graduation requirement to make sure that our students know how to code, to make sure that our students are prepared for the jobs of tomorrow, or what I call them, the jobs of today.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you for the shout out for computer science as a graduation requirement. I hope that passes.
Working hard.
You talked about, we've been talking about politics and education. I'm just curious because, again, we're trying to give these folks insights. And are you dealing with any politics related to AI in education right now? Is it a political thing? And we're actually going to start out with Superintendent Truitt, because Superintendent Truitt, again, your state already has AI guidance. I'd like to know whether there are any political considerations or what other considerations there were in the run-up to even deciding to create guidance.
Yeah, that's a great way to phrase that question, Pat. So I'm someone who's remains frustrated that the system of public K-12 education that we have has not really allowed teachers to master the third revolution, let alone the fourth revolution, right? So when I think about whether or not our teachers have had everything that they need to be able to leverage the third revolution, obviously we're all one-to-one now because of the pandemic, if we weren't before. But I still am in classrooms all the time where teachers are focused on high-stakes assessment and are not necessarily, they're still asking yes and no questions in the age of Google. And so what I know to be true is that because of the rapid evolution of technology, knowledge ceases to be valuable overnight. And therefore, we have to make sure that the system of education we have is allowing students to access a skills-based economy. And I don't think that we have that right now. And so when I learned that we had a large district who had banned ChatGPT, my CIO and I put our heads together and we said, we've got to issue AI guidance. So that's really kind of where it emanated. Yeah. We, last August, put together a cross-functional team in the agency, knowing that it would be guidance and not something we could force people to use in the districts. And we issued it in January. It is not a do and don't. It's an evolving document that allows for districts to adapt it to their own needs while being very comprehensive and very usable. There's a teacher component, a student component, and it addresses the equity issue that Tony mentioned. If you start canceling ChatGPT in districts, then you are increasing the connectivity divide and you have to allow students if they're not going to be able to access AI at home, they have to be able to access it at school.
So that's the impetus for why you all decided to create state-level AI guidance. What about the rest of you all? And actually, I mean, even Superintendent Baesler, you're in that process right now. Again, you haven't issued it, but what are your thoughts about just any politics related to it?
So as much as I really respect what Secretary Ebert has said, or Superintendent Ebert from Nevada has said about children don't deserve to be in the crosshairs of politics. They don't deserve to be there. But I actually think that's a large part of my role. So when our children don't deserve to be in that crosshair of politics, I got to stand in front of it. I got to take the bullet for it.
Wow.
And so
what kind of bullets are you taking for AI?
Taking a lot of bullets. I truly am taking a lot of bullets. And so we are issuing our guidance. It will come to my desk next week. I'll have the first draft of it. We'll have a big launch. We have a convening that you will be part of in June in North Dakota to help us launch this at the Governor's Innovation Summit. And we will issue the guidance at that point when you become our keynote speaker. And so that's the launch for that. But every step of the way, I've had to look at it of a lens of politics. Like, how will this conservative state explain and understand, or receive and understand what AI guidance is? And so I think one of the biggest things, we have a saying that we speak almost every day in the Department of Public Instruction in North Dakota, is that student outcomes won't change, can never change until adult behaviors change. And so we are in the business of supporting our adults to change their behaviors so their student outcomes can be better every day. And so that's the approach that I've taken with the AI guidance, is to not approach AI guidance with a deficit mindset of, and I think a lot of our AI guidance it is potentially dangerous and everything and when you lead with that, you immediately take curious teachers that have gone into the profession of teaching because they're curious people and they want to help young people be curious, and you've immediately said, okay, but be cautious. So our AI guidance is not going to take that approach at all. We will lead with the opportunities to help our young people be even more curious. And just like I wouldn't ask anybody in my fiscal office to do the revenue or grant management in the long sheet of doing the calculations of a grant by hand, of course they're going to use technology and Excel. Of course, we're going to use AI to help us teach better, to do the instruction, the teaching and learning side of things. And so what I'm really focused on with this guidance is a very asset-minded approach to lead with what our AI can do for not only the teaching and learning side of education, but also the administrative side of education. So our human beings can be spending more time with our young people to teach them to be curious.
So shout out to all here. I don't know if anyone or if they even have a kiosk here with their Ed LAUSD thing, but that's a great example of the use of AI for school management and operations, or in this case, a large district management operations. And maybe some of y'all heard from Superintendent Alberto Carvalho about that EdBot thing that they have going on now. That it's just a prototype right now, and it's being piloted in just a couple places, but it might spread across the nation. It's not just an LAUSD kind of thing. I have a question for Superintendent Ebert. Superintendent Ebert, in fact, all of you, in different ways, have been supporters of computer science for a long time. How does computer science fit into all of this? I mean, there's been huge work that all of you have done in terms of computer science. Is AI like a new, different thing, or like how do they fit together?
Is AI different? Well, I'm really fortunate that in Nevada we do have computer science as a graduation requirement. And so when you think about computer science and the coursework that has transpired, a lot of people in the past have kind of put it in this little bucket of computers, computer science, maybe programming, all of those pieces. What's the beauty of AI right now, right? It is not in a box in any way, shape, or form. And so PK20 work that we'll be doing, English, mathematics, science, the performing arts, all of those components, we see it being integrated into. And like my colleague from North Dakota, we're in the process of doing our guidance as well. And it's been just a pure joy to get out in the community. We're doing listening tours, teaching at the same time, saying, okay, let's drill down on that question, if it's not helpful and where we've been and all of those pieces. So the explosion of the opportunity and making sure that we are not creating inequities as we all move forward. We have to be extremely intentional about not creating any barriers. And I think we've had a lot of conversations about that. But our parents are huge in all of this work. And so making sure that we're pulling them in, workforce, community, building those relationships as we move forward for implementation. So really excited about the AI work that's transpiring, not only in Nevada, but across our nation.
Yeah, so speaking of AI work, again, so there's going to be a resource that will be released tomorrow by Teach AI, which again is an initiative that's actually global, and these are global resources, and certainly some are dedicated for US policy work. But these are the 5 policies. Foster leadership is creating an AI in education task force, which some of y'all have, promoting AI literacy, providing guidance, which we just talked about, building capacity, which is professional development for all staff, including educators, and then supporting innovation, R&D into effective tools, processes, pedagogy, et cetera. So I'd like to go down the lane here, starting with Superintendent Thurmond. Just pick one, and why do you feel that's relevant? How does it resonate with you? Why is it important for your state?
Well, I'd love to pick them all, but I'm going to be obedient for once, and I'm going to take support innovation for 1,000.
All right.
Because if you think about, our schools are supposed to prepare our students to think critically and to enjoy and love learning, and also prepare them for a bright future. And oftentimes what happens in technological sectors goes so much faster than where our schools are. And I think it's important for us to support innovation to make sure that our students are learning the things that will be expected of them as future members of our workforce. And there may be different entry points for them in that workforce. And you'd asked about, is AI different than computer science? And to me, it's really not. It's just that those who've been closest to it maybe feel the most comfortable.
Yep.
That people are cautious in some quadrants. Others are really ready, just compelled to say, let's implement it. And others are excited and exuberant. And I think we have to help people understand that AI can never, ever, ever do the job that a great educator does.
Right.
People help people learn, but this can be a great tool to help. There are states that are using AI to teach teachers how to teach coding.
Yep.
And so if a bot can do that, that's
Yep.
a tool that I think that we should explore.
Yep.
In many ways, it has crept into our technology in ways that we don't even understand.
Yep.
For students who say they want to work in the automotive section, they have to know that they're not going to be under the hood like they used to be.
Yep.
Because there are robots that are assembling the cars.
Yep.
But if they can service those robots that assemble the cars, they will be able to keep pace
Yep.
with the demands of the technology. And so to me, I think the innovation is the place for us to really focus. We've launched what we're calling it esteemed advisory council, but really it's all parts
Yep.
technology. And for those of you who want to help us, it's how we help schools understand what we need to provide for our students. If you want to be a part of it, just call me, 1-800 where you're at. I'm happy to take your calls and connect you with it.
Yeah.
But our students need to know what those opportunities are to be prepared. We also have legislation this year that specifically calls for the creation of an AI work group because people have questions.
Yep.
How are we going to use it in education? And so rather than fear it, rather than run from it, I'm saying let's head to it and embrace it and figure out how we can use it as a tool to help educators in every sense, in every sector.
We have about a minute left. We got to go down the lane here. Superintendent Truitt, which one would you pick and why?
I'll be super quick. I'm going to say build capacity, and I'm going to link it back to higher ed. We haven't really talked about higher ed yet, but all of the things that the people on this stage want to scale and promote in the name of innovation and better student outcomes have to filter up to higher ed so that our pre-service teachers are ready to go on day one, and that's where building capacity comes in.
Thank you. Thank you. Superintendent Baesler.
I'm going to put support innovation for 3,000 in that column, 100%. And I would just say because that's where I came from. I was a undergraduate in pre-law on my way to law school, and I got hired as a library assistant because I probably knew what a 5 1/4 floppy disk, how to put it in. And so I did Oregon Trail with my 5th graders. And that led me to my passion of life.
And here you are on
And here we
stage
are.
talking about AI.
AI, exactly. And so I think AI puts an exclamation point on computer science.
Yeah.
Because they have to understand, our young people have to understand how it works, and then they become the masters of it instead of it become the masters of them. And
Beautiful.
so that is with curiosity and ever-changing growth. So I'm going to 2,000 for support.
Thank you. And Superintendent Ebert.
Building
last.
capacity, 100%. Community, everything that's been talked about here. Double down on that.
Okay. Well, folks, you had a treat. These are 4 state superintendents leading their states in an age of AI. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.